TESOL Pop, Season 9, Episode 9. Hello and welcome to TESOL Pop, the mini podcast for busy teachers. My name is Laura and joining me today to talk about using visual templates to support learning is Emily Bryson. In this episode, Emily demonstrates how we can use visual templates to support learning in discussing and planning projects, such as a podcast. We talk and draw using different templates that you can download in the show notes, and you can follow along by watching this episode on YouTube or Spotify. Now let's join the conversation where I asked Emily about the difference between graphic organisers and visual templates.
So this is a visual template. You might think it's very similar to a graphic organizer. I would say in many ways it is a graphic organizer. For me, the difference between a graphic organizer and a visual template is that there's a bit of a visual backstory or a visual metaphor attached to it. So for example, in this particular visual template, so I'm using Canva whiteboard here, and in this particular visual template, there's a person who is your listener, and you can write inside the actual person. So instead of, for example, maybe a graphic organizer is maybe a bit more square or circle, like right in the box, right in this table. Maybe you've got like a Venn diagram, for example.
I see a lot of Venn diagrams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, those are kind of graphic organizers that we're quite familiar with. Whereas a visual template uses a bit more of a story and a container. So this is a container. This person here is a container and has a bit of a backstory because it involves having person there. Or and here you've got the what do you call this? The cable that goes into the headphone socket. If you are still using those kind, I am. I'm a big fan of wired headphones, and it goes all the way around to here to the headphone jack. Which is listening to the TESOL Pop podcast.
You mentioned earlier that the difference between graphic organisers and visual templates. And I think a lot of listeners who may be not watching the visuals to this podcast will be like, oh, yeah, tables, Venn diagrams and all that are quite familiar. What we're looking at with this visual template, there's a lot more playfulness I see in this that I don't necessarily associate with graphic organisers. Would you say that's true, or is that more of your style?
Yeah, so in graphic facilitation, I think there is a bit more playfulness. The visual storytelling aspect adds a bit more play, adds a bit more inspiration in a way. It kind of makes it snazzy and brings it to life. So yeah, adding that extra story element or that extra metaphor, I think gives it a little bit more inspiration and gets people thinking in a different way.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it's not like you're having to fill in a box, whereas where I think about tables and diagrams, it's usually you having to write a specific thing in a specific box. And it also has that impression that there's a correct answer to fill in that said box as well.
Whereas looking at this template we're looking at here,
it really is like an artist's canvas. It's opens and invites creativity.
Yeah, I've never thought of it as being it's a blank canvas for an artist, and actually, so you can use it with your students, or with your podcasting candidates, and they can add words. They can just add writing if you want. You can write your ideas, or if you don't want to write ideas, they can also ask them to draw as well. So they can maybe add some little drawings in there. And it's up to them. They can draw if they want to. They might feel comfortable drawing. They might be super love it. They might not really like drawing, in which case then writing is perfectly fine. So it's entirely up to you how you want to use it. You can write entire sentences as well if you want.
I'm really excited to actually put this to the test. I know we've got another template that we could use. Should we have a go at using that second one for you to test out with me to show it in action?
This is the second one. This is the different words that describe your podcasts. So this is a way of getting, maybe if you're a teacher and you're wanting to start podcasting with your students and you want them to have a good brainstorm, have a good think about what they want their podcast to be. So what words describe your podcast? So for me, when I think about TESOL Pop, I think of bright pink, happy, you're very bouncy, happy way of presenting and talking to people. So for me, I would describe T-Sol Pop as fun, very succinct as well. You've managed to like summarize quite a lot of information into a very short time. What else would you use to describe your particular podcast?
Well, I hope it's inspiring. So by talking to different people, I want people to feel like, oh, I can do that, or oh, I already do that. That's really cool, because I know it's mainly primarily aimed at teachers who don't have a lot of time, and I've been that teacher. And so many challenges you're faced with every single week, every single day. So it can get a bit demotivating. So I hope they tune in and think, oh, I already do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I find it very inspiring for sure. And anything else that you find about what other words would you use?
Definitely practical.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's fun in there. Practical. And the beauty of this template is that you can just keep bouncing ideas around. You can write as many as you want. Anything else?
I think we've got the fun, succinct, practical, inspiring, the teacher-led or educator-led. It's very much about the guests and the listeners, not about myself.
Okay. Yes. And there are so many you've had so many amazing speakers on over time. You've got so many different perspectives on there as well. So yeah, educator-led.
I think that idea of sharing as well, like it's always good to hear different ideas from different people. So like the idea of sharing.
Yeah. Okay.
It's almost like the virtual staff room.
Yeah. Like a virtual staff room. I like that. Yeah. Virtual staff room. Because actually a lot of your podcast episodes on social media, when you or like people add a lot of comments, and I think it brings people together. So maybe if you've shared a podcast episode, and then I love reading all the comments about how different people have responded to it.
Nice. I see how this comes together. And you mentioned the whole aspect of doodling as well. It can be used.
Yeah.
This is a really good example of that in practice.
Yeah. And like doodling doesn't need to be art. Like right here, I'm using Canva whiteboard. And usually if you've seen my professional sketch notes, you'll notice that they're much more polished and tidier than the little drawings that are on this whiteboard right now. So yeah, don't be afraid of just using really simple doodles to add things. So like here you've got like this, these are just like 3 little N shapes. So sorry for people who are just listening and not watching. These are 3. If you want to draw multiple people, you could draw an M or like 2 M's together, and they add little circles on top, and then that's a group of people. Mm-hmm. So it's really quite simple the way I draw, the graphic facilitation style of drawing. It's very simple.
It's definitely makes drawing a lot less scary. Actually incorporating visuals. I mean, in the note taking, you just demonstrated how simple it is. And actually, when I was watching you do it, I was like, what is that going to be? And then I saw it completed with the circles. I was like, oh yeah, people, that looks like a staff room. Perfect. Yeah. It works so effectively.
Yeah. And like this light bulb here, for example, it's just a U shape, and then a little O on top, and then an M, and then a Z. And that's your light bulb. Yeah. You can add little to turn it on, turn the light bulb on. And then that can mean like creativity, ideas, critical thinking, inspiration. It can mean so many different things, which is so it's quite a cool, easy one to start with.
Thinking about listeners who've been following along to this point, they're probably thinking, how can I get this into my classroom? Like, I'd love to get my students using these templates in a way that gets them generating ideas for a podcast, whether they're going to record it or perform it, because it doesn't have to be recorded. It could be like a performance-based piece project. How could this fit into the classroom setting? Where would you suggest they start, or how they use this resource?
I would use it at the beginning of the kind of brainstorming process. So you could either copy this idea and use it on the whiteboard and get teachers or get students to come out and actually add their ideas on the whiteboard. So you can download Laura's PDF, and then display it on the whiteboard and get students to come up if you've got an interactive whiteboard and draw on it. Or you could take a screenshot of it, put it into a Canva whiteboard, or like Miro or Mural are also really good online whiteboards. Sadly, Jamboard is no more. But yeah, my favourite one at the moment is Canva, because I use Canva for so many other things that I don't need to pay extra for it. But yeah, you could use it to add ideas initially, and then get students to use that as the basis of a discussion. And then from that discussion, you could get them to write it up, maybe write a summary, maybe a summary email of what their podcast is going to be, or like a summary, like notes. You could even get them to sketch note what their podcast might look like, or the words that describe their podcast. There's all sorts of different activities that you can do with this. So this would just be for this particular template. What words would you describe? And then they could move on to the other template, the who is your ideal listener template. What challenges do they have? How will my podcast serve them? And again, ask them to add their ideas. Who is the ideal listener? So I would start with like the brainstorming part, where they fill in their ideas, and then get them to discuss it and share ideas. And then maybe get them to take notes or add notes, or maybe write about it or present about it.
That could be the lesson in itself, couldn't it? Just come up with the idea and then pitch an idea, and then students give feedback on that idea, a bit like Shark Tank or Dragon's Den sort of version, but for podcasting ideas.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great idea.
I love this. I think this is a really great facilitator of conversations, and I can see how flexible it could be used for teachers. I'm thinking back to my teenage students' classroom and the young adults I've taught before. I could literally take it to that point of pitching ideas, or I could revisit this and recycle this, getting students to look back at the template that they've used to then complete a template for an episode that they're planning, making sure that the content and the style aligns with what their vision was, which is what the first template of describing a podcast alludes to. Like, what's really important to you? Is it going to be upbeat and short and kind of funky in a way? Does the content you planned reflect that, or do you need to make some changes? And I really hope listeners today that are tuning in that go and download this template to actually give it a go. So the link to this is actually in the show notes for people to easily find and to give it a go. And we'd love it if you actually shared it with us, or shared versions of what your students created, with their permission, of course, with us by tagging myself and Emily, because we'd love to see what they create. Emily, this has been so fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing this. Before we close today's episode, could you please tell listeners where can they find out more about these wonderful visual templates that you create and graphic facilitation?
Oh, thanks. It's been amazing being on. I love coming on TSOPOP. So my website is emilybrysonelt.com. I've got lots of freebies on there, which are, some are visual templates, some are little drawing videos for how to do simple icons and things like that. I've also got quite a lot of sketch notes on there. And you can download my visual template book, which I've created, which is called Pathways to Success, and has lots of different visual templates for helping students to map out their goals, to look at their progression, and to get where they want to be, really. So that's available on my website at emilybrysonelt.com. And you can also follow me on socials at emilybrysonelt.
That's lovely. And as always, I've included those links in the show notes so you can find those easily. If you have a question that you'd like us to answer, or an idea that you'd like to pitch to TSOPOP, then you can contact us via Instagram, Facebook, or the website tsopop.com. Finally, you can support the work we do by sharing today's episode with your teaching community, by leaving us a rating and review wherever you listen to the podcast, or by even buying us a coffee. Now, wouldn't that be nice? At ko-fi.com/TSOPOP.